We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the Friday edition of Free Association Radio. This is the Friday Farcast. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host, your guide, your navigator, whatever title you wish to endow upon me, I humbly accept. Because from now until 1 o'clock Central Time, you'll be spending it with me, and we'll be traveling through a couple of different topics and making some fairly interesting connections and troubling connections at that, because we're at a point in time which is, in astrological terms, I would call it a cusp moment. Cusp being that on the edge of one sign to another, or on the edge of one house to another. And the cusp moment that we're facing collectively here in this country and in the world to a certain extent. And I don't want to sound American-centric or United States-centric, but this is a big piece to the global governance puzzle. And if America, or the United States as we know it, goes down from the form that we know it and associate with it, then it's a problem for the rest of the world. If this were, dominoes, this would be one giant domino, and everything else would simply just completely collapse after that. And we're in a very pivotal moment in our history here in this country, and as a result, the world. Because what we're seeing now is we're seeing the kind of full frontal assault on the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms. Obviously, I have stated this unequivocally over and over again. I'm not a gun owner. Very likely I will never own a gun in this lifetime, and it's not because I think they're evil or anything like that. It has to do with something more esoteric than actually owning a firearm. It's not in my spiritual DNA for this lifetime, but I wholly and fully support the right to others. And who knows, there may come a time in my life where I might have to bear an arm. But it is not now. And yet, the engine, the political and the media-driven engine that's revving up in order to make this reality is troubling. And the reason it's troubling is not just that it's an assault on our rights and freedoms, our constitutionally guaranteed rights and freedoms, but if you look around and you begin to peel back the layers, you'll see that there are some troubling events that are taking place. and they're taking place peacefully. And I'm not sure how much longer they're going to be taking place peacefully, to be honest with you. Because at some point, people are going to say no, and they're going to fight back. And this is when I believe the hundreds of millions of rounds of ammunition that have been purchased by government agencies and these very strange agencies being DHS and FEMA, and these very strange kinds of vehicles that look like almost like urban assault vehicles that are being seen on trains by people around the country with the FEMA stamp on them. That's when these pieces of equipment and all the paraphernalia along with it will be called into action. And it's because at some point people will have said, we've had enough. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to play some audio, and if you have seen the audio and heard the audio, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I'm not even going to give you the visual. You can get the visual because I've put a link to it on my show page, so you can actually watch the original video. But you'll be able to hear, in some ways, the anguish that is going on in the it's a 12-minute clip I'm going to play you. And I'm going to front load this. The clip took place, it was an event that took place on January 25th. And it was at Morningland Dairy in Mountain View, Missouri. And the owner of the dairy is a man by the name of Joe Dixon. And you'll hear him on the video. He'll be the one that's quoting scripture. And it's a very profound piece of audio verite, especially that moment where he's sort of talking to a milk board drone. And so here's the backstory. Morningland Dairy supplied raw milk and raw cheese to a number of health food stores or raw food stores around the country, but primarily a store in Venice, California called Rawesome, Rawsome. And Rawesome had been targeted by the feds, the FDA, for their raw milk products. And there were a number of raids on Rawesome, and that's where they found the cheese from Morningland. And of course, the next thing they were going to do is they were going to go after the source of the cheese. Now, I'm going to read you a piece here, and this is from the Inquisitor, and this is going to give you some background as to how all this went down. So this is from the Inquisitor, and I believe the release date on this was just a few days ago. Actually, it was the 1st, so 21 days ago, less than a month. It's still pretty fresh news, though. It says, Mountain View, Missouri, Morningland Dairy was put out of business by the Missouri Milk Board. A battle over raw cheese, which began in 2005, ended with approximately $250,000 worth of cheese being hauled off the property earlier this week. The owners of the family business first became involved in the raw cheese controversy in 2005, Natural News reports. A group of undercover agents converged upon the California-based Rawesome Foods. The Venice Private Food Buying Club was investigated for selling raw cheese to health-conscious club members. Since 1949, the government has banned the sale of cheese comprised from unpasteurized milk unless the cheese had been aged at least 60 days. The 60-day raw milk cheese ban was reportedly designed to protect consumers from bacteria and pathogens. About notes. The food regulation agencies reportedly feel that Salmonella, Listeria, and E. coli are prevented from forming after 60 days due to the salts and acids in raw milk cheese. Some cheesemakers disagree with the need for the 60-day waiting period. Such cheesemakers and dairy farmers feel that raw milk cheese is healthier and more flavorful than commercially processed cheeses. Jump forward 5 years, and the Morningland Dairy becomes the focal point of the raw foods fight. Armed government officials raided Rawesome Foods and confiscated
fresh from the farm products valued at several $1,000s. Among the items taken, more than several thousand, 250,000. Okay, that's a light estimate. Among the items taken by the local, state, and federal agents were raw milk cheese products produced by Morningland Dairy. I'm sorry, that's Rawesome. It's several thousand. Okay, so we're going back there. Raw Foods and Morningland Dairy supporters maintain that government officials did not follow the agency's confiscation guidelines when removing the cheese. The raw milk cheese was allegedly not transported in refrigerated trucks or ice coolers, but in room temperature crates. The cheese was reportedly not tested until a week later. Morningland Dairy owners firmly believe that the raw milk cheese did not contain any harmful bacteria when it was stored. When the Missouri Milk Board became involved in the matter, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration did as well. A total of 50,000 pounds of raw artisan cheese worth more than $250,000 was ordered destroyed. None of the cheese has reportedly ever tested positive for bacteria. The Missouri dairy farmers attempted to point out that the cheese taken from the California Raw Foods Club had not been stored properly, making the test results inaccurate. The Morningland Dairy practically begged the governmental agencies involved to allow them to pay for independent tests on cheese samples from every batch currently in their inventory. The pleas to allow such tests were tantamount to keeping the family business from going under. No such tests were ever approved. Supporters of the Morningland Dairy and Raw Foods were on hand with video cameras when the Missouri Milk Board arrived to seize the cheese, putting the long-standing family farm out of business. The Missouri family farm had been in business for 30 years. The dairy had not had one single complaint or illness filed against it throughout the history of the business. This comes from the farm's website. Please note, due to unfair and dastardly undermining by the Missouri state authorities, Morningland Dairy has been forced to cease production, recall healthful products, and cease selling our present aged cheese. If you are following the state's movement towards the regulation, confiscation, and ban of firearms, Missouri is at the forefront. Missouri wants to be able to confiscate weapons. They're going to actually they're going to try to ban the sale of weapons in the state of Missouri. So it doesn't really surprise me that we would see such aggressive tactics taking place at a local level with a family-owned business that's been around for 30 years. I put in a call to Morningland Dairy to see if I could talk with someone, and I just got an answering machine. I left a message. So hopefully maybe sometime next week, maybe on the Monday show, we can do a follow-up, or I can do a follow-up to find out what's happened since then. This is a tragedy of epic proportion, and what we're seeing here is we're seeing collusion on a pretty macro level. There's collusion between the federal government and the state government in California to allow the raid to occur. Of course, there's collusion at a local level. The sheriffs and the LAPD were basically standing, off to the side while all this went down at Rawesome. And then we have the federal and the state and local collusion in Mountain View, Missouri, because on hand at the farm, at the Morningland Farm in Mountain View, Missouri, were the local sheriff's department, who were supposed to be there to protect the people, in which case, or in this case, they were actually protecting the state. And they were there for the milk board, and they were the muscle. They were the muscle that was there to make sure the cheese got moved onto these trucks, these dump trucks. They destroyed the cheese. And this is troubling on so many levels. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about and try to connect some dots here today, and we've only got a 60-minute show because I don't have a guest, so I wanted to give you some information. One of the things that, what just happened, we just saw a family farmer go out of business. And if he's going to go out of business, he can't have that land anymore. He may own the land, maybe they own it outright, maybe they paid for it over time, I don't know. I don't know what the situation is with the ownership of the land. But there's probably a good chance that they need to stay in business in order to continue to work the land. And now that they're no longer in business, their relationship to the land is jeopardized. And one of the things that I wanted to do today was to try to make some connections between Agenda 21 and what happens in a place like Rawesome and what happens with Morningland Dairy, and how the Food Safety Act and some of these other regulations come into play and begin to, again, here's that word again, collude towards a certain end. And that end is moving people off their land. Because Agenda 21, the goal of Agenda 21, which was set down in the Rio Summit in 1992, was basically a global initiative that would be headed up by the UN that would use internationally enforced regulations and standards by a group called ICLE. ICLE is a German-based group. So they're based out of Germany. Their headquarters in the United States is in Oakland. And ICLE is an NGO that has standards that communities will have to abide by in order to be green communities. And it's everything from using those crappy light bulbs with aluminum in them to certain types of paints. And I mean, look, I am not a slash and burn free market capitalist that says you can do anything you want to the environment. I think we need to take care of the environment. You know, I think it's a big deal. Trust me, I think the environment is a really important piece to who we are. But it is not just ironic, but it's also insanity that we would have these regulations starting to be enforced at a local level by ICLE in order to become compliant, while somebody can turn on their tap water in North Carolina and light a match to it and it would be on fire. I mean, this is the insanity of the world. This is the cognitive dissonance that drives people over the edge. But the ultimate goal for Agenda 21 is to move people into population centers where the UN and the UN enforced rules in terms of compliance, environment, and reducing the carbon footprint and all that related material, that's happening within these centers. And there are the stack 'em and pack 'em building structures, which are very prevalent in a place like San Francisco. If you travel to San Francisco and you cross the Bay Bridge and you go into San Francisco from the East Bay, one of the first things you'll see is an enormous loft space or building space, which is kind of a mixed-use facility. So the whole idea is on the bottom floor, you would have like a Trader Joe's, maybe a dry cleaner. Of course, they'd be compliant, green compliant. And then maybe you would have a yoga and Pilates studio and a place where they sell cell phones. And then above that, you'd have 50 stories of living space. And you'll see one of these just as you come off the Bay Bridge. It's unusual because it is so close to the Bay Bridge. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's kind of their way of showing where these things are going. You know, it's like, here it is. Take notice. The future is up, not out. So that is the goal. And as a result, to get people to move into these areas, you have to take something away. You have to take land away. You have to take the ability to be self-sufficient away. And what we've just seen on the 25th of January is a very dramatic exhibition of that taking place. And it's not going to get better. I'm going to be really upfront with you. It's not going to get better because this is the plan. This is the plan now. The plan is to move people into urban centers, green zones, so that they can be managed. People are now cattle. They've always been cattle, but now it's becoming more apparent than ever. The free-range society, ladies and gentlemen, is coming to an end. It was an illusion to begin with, but now the illusion is ending. So one of the things that just happened is that New Hampshire, and this is from the Huffington Post, New Hampshire, there have been 5 states that have taken on Agenda 21. All 5 have lost, with the exception of one, and one wasn't an outright block to Agenda 21. It was a denouncement of Agenda 21. That passed. Apparently, you can say, we don't like this, but go ahead and do it, and that's okay. That was in Tennessee. But if you say, no, we don't like this, and we don't want it, we're not going to pass it, it's not okay. So it was interesting that this happened in New Hampshire, because New Hampshire was traditionally a very strong conservative state. I know this for a fact. I have ex-in-laws that live in New Hampshire, and the reason they live there is because there's no state tax and there's no personal tax. Think about that. You don't have, it doesn't come out of your check. When you go to a store and buy something, you don't get taxed on it. So there's a certain mindset that wants to be in an area like that, right? It's a mindset that's generally conservative, wants to keep its money. And in fact, I've actually seen what they do with the money that they do keep. They contribute it. They have their own after-school programs. I mean, it's a community that's all. If you don't give back, by the way, in New Hampshire, with all these perks, and trust me, they know who doesn't give back. Then you get a reputation for being a skinflint and not participating with the community, which is not good, generally speaking. So you're kind of ostracized. So it behooves one in order to give back because you're getting breaks. So this is the mindset that has been fostered in New Hampshire. Well, that's changing. It's becoming much more quote unquote progressive, and it's now. It used to be a red state. It's now a purple state. So this is from the Huffington Post here. The battle over Agenda 21, the United Nations Sustainability Agenda, moves back to New Hampshire as a Republican state lawmaker has signaled her intent to ban the program from the state. This was last year. They lost. The Republicans lost. The state representative Lynette Peterson of Merrimack has filed legislation to ban implementation of Agenda 21 in the state, along with prohibiting local governments from receiving funding from the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, that's ICLEI, an international group seeking to promote Agenda 21. So here's what's going on here. At least we're seeing that Agenda 21 is afoot. I mean, it's out there. It is public knowledge now, and people are trying to go after it on a state level. Now, what's happening here, just like anything else where people are saying, no, we don't want this. We want to be able to have our own community, our own design. We want to be able to have our own land. We want to, people want to have a say. And what's happened now is that has been turned into toxic or hateful rhetoric. People are now being singled out for being angry. They're tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists. They're teabaggers. They're right wingers. They're conservatives. They're Ron Paul followers. They're neo-Nazis. I mean, the vector is getting quite wide now. They're John Birchers. There's this nasty taint of being exclusionary, of being racist, of being sexist, of being homophobic, of being white. This is what it all comes down to. And if you really got down to it, there are people, who across the board, it doesn't really matter what their ethnicity is. In many regards, it doesn't matter what their religious standing is. But they'll agree upon the same thing, and they want to have the same kind of experience, which is stay out of our business. Let us do what we have the right to do. And we don't want some internationally agreed upon treaty impacting us and changing our way of life, because quite frankly, we have a document here. It's called the Constitution. It's called the Constitution. You know what that was? That was the people from. Hold on. Hello.
Hi, this is Joe from Morningland Dairy. How are you doing?
Hey, Joe. I'm doing good. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes.
So, Joe, right now I'm actually doing my radio show, and I was just talking about your experience and what happened, and I was going to play the video a little bit later in the show, even though I don't have the visual. The audio is so compelling. I wanted to share it with some people. Thank you for calling, by the way. I really appreciate it. And I was really moved to call you because of that moment. That 12 minutes of video is some of the most compelling video I've ever seen. And I mean, so many things went through my head when that happened. I actually have you on speakerphone now, and we're broadcasting live. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, Joe, is what's happened in the wake of your farm being shut down, and you not having the necessary funds in order to keep going. Where are you right now?
Well, right now, 2.5 years ago is when this started. We've been fighting for 2.5 years now, approximately, and I had to go back to work on the road as construction back east of the Mississippi. We live in Missouri. And it's been pretty rough. There's been times I've had to travel 1,000 miles one way just to make sure my family eats while we've been fighting there. But to date, there have been no state tests or no federal tests of the cheese or anything, and we're digging into the case more and more now. I have been to Jefferson City once to meet with representatives up there who told me that this is a way to try to stop raw milk and raw milk cheese products and infringe upon our rights to choose of what foods we choose to eat. That the FDA and certain state and federal agencies are trying to shut the American people down. So we're still fighting. We're looking into possible litigation with the milk board in the states. And we could use any help we could get from people to call the representatives up, state and federal, because it's not just for our little cheese plant. Our little cheese plant right now is only the point of an arrow that we're trying to ask other people to help shove that arrow onto the heart of this system that's attempting to destroy our nation. And it takes everybody else to be the shaft and the bow to get us there.
Yeah.
And this is our Heavenly Father's battle. That's why the video, I asked our Heavenly Father for the words to speak. And I believe that's why it has touched so many people, because there has been no harm done, and it doesn't matter in today's system what the truth is anymore. So we've got to start standing up our biblical and constitutional rights to search for the truth again and find the truth. The truth shall set us free.
One of the things that was what really got to me was when you were talking to the man who was, I think his name is Larry Bassett, and he was there with the milk board, and I was trying to gauge his response while you were sharing, basically to allow them to do what they were going to do, but to pray that these guys could have some redemption, forgiveness, and what happened after that? Did any of these guys come up to you from the milk board and say they were sorry? Did they have any kind of personal repentance with you? What happened after those moments? Nothing.
Nothing. They all were still as effective as they were. They were just, quote, doing their jobs as under Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin. That's what all the bureaucrats said under them, including military people, when they went against the people that they were supposed to protect. Actually, I don't know if you've seen, there was in the last video where they were waiting to haul off the last dumpster of cheese. They actually, the state milk board watched, the state patrol watched, the sheriff's department watched while a child played on the cheese in the dumpster. Reached into the dumpster, played with it, other people played with it, looked at it, held it, and everything else. And if this cheese was really as bad as they said it was under oath in court in January of 2011, they told us how bad it was. We couldn't even sell it for dog food or anything else because it, quote, could contaminate the dog food plant or be pasteurized. But you got to remember, there hasn't been one single illness or one single complaint on our cheese in 30 years. So that's what always kept getting to us with these regulations getting tighter and tighter. Basically, they're making our land sterile. With good farming practices, our land is becoming sterile. In other words, it cannot produce without all the chemicals.
Right.
With good manufacturing practices, our food is becoming sterile. And we as people cannot live in a sterile environment. We need the natural enzymes, bacteria that our food gives us as we eat it to build an immunity system that we no longer have. And we're losing. And, the milk board told us that, we have the safest food supply in the world, but yet for some reason we have some of the sickest people now and some of the worst diseases. So it just doesn't add up. And whenever we got to watching as we watched this child play on the dumpster, these other people, and realized this: if this cheese was so bad, after 2.5 years in the cooler, still being refrigerated, but imagine your refrigerator being closed up for 2.5 years, and then coming back to it 2.5 years later and say, well, now I got to clean it out. Well, over 2 years earlier, the state stated that our cheese was so bad we couldn't even sell it for dog food. Then they come in 2.5 years after the refrigerator's been closed and handle it in plain clothes, handle it with just regular cloth gloves. Some cheese looked very, very good, yet some of it was looking pretty rough, as it would after 2.5 years. And they got it, the whey continues to come out of the cheese. Some of the packs that come open, they got the whey on their clothes. Basically, if they were telling the truth, they would have come in with some form of protective gear.
Right.
Such as a hazmat suit or something like that. They came in, they got them on their clothes, they went out to lunch at lunchtime, then came back. They then got in their state vehicles with their clothes on and contaminated their vehicles. And then the next business day, go to other plants and inspect other plants. That told me the whole story right there.
Right.
That basically they built a story just to protect themselves once people started questioning them. Because, they cannot quote back down.
Right. What's the status with your land, Joe? Are you able to stay on your land and keep your land?
We have been continuing on the payments for the business. The land is part of that, which is only 15 acres there. We rented the rest. The rest we had to turn back over to the original owners of Morningland Dairy. Jim and Mark Reiner started it over 30 years ago. My wife worked for them for 1.5 years, learning everything, and then they wanted to retire. They kind of became the grandparents at that point in a matter of terms. And we took over and started carrying on where they left off. And we had letter upon letter of people thanking us for making something that they could eat again, that they felt good about eating. And like I said, without one sickness or anything else, we got shut down. And after 2.5-year court battle, they basically just came in and said, we're going to destroy your product, we'll destroy your cheese, your livelihood. And so we're trying to put our lives back together now. We are still fighting in the legislative process now, and we ask other people to do the same in each and every state that they're in, and also call the representative and say, enough's enough. We have a God-given right to choose, and we're not permitting you to take that away. And that's what we're asking people to continue doing, along with state and federal, on both state and federal levels, and call the representatives up in our state also and say, how can you do this without any actual good evidence to back it up?
Yeah, it seems rather expedient. I was also making a note earlier in the show that in terms of, it's a separate issue, but somehow related, that Missouri has just announced one of the most aggressive state policies for the confiscation of firearms. And this happened, I think, in the last couple of weeks, or maybe actually the last week. So it doesn't surprise me that this would happen. And then on the 25th of January, your farm would also be, for all intents and purposes, shut down. So there seems to be kind of a coordinated effort here on a pretty large scale. If people want to be able to help you out, Joe, where can they go to do that?
They go to morninglanddairy.com and get on our site, check out some of the other information we put on there. There's also a site they can go to called the Uncheese Party. Exactly how they get to that, I think there's a link on our site. Or they can help us out directly by emailing us at morninglanddairy.com through that access, or our address is John Denise Dixon, 6248 County Road, 2980, Mountain View, Missouri, 65548.
Okay.
And phone number if they'd like to call, they're welcome to call me or my wife at any time, because we're willing to speak to any group. We're trying to bring awareness about that they're just basically through overregulation destroying everything we have in this nation. And unless we stop them, unless we say no, they continue forward.
Yeah.
And they continue forward with your tax money in mind. And these regulations are, in reality, if people will look at it, it's taxation without representation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because a lot of these regulations are just now presidential decrees, even, or governor decrees.
Yeah.
So we think that Missouri is one of the battleground states that they're trying to beat down if they can. And I'm talking about the liberal mindset agenda of shutting our country down, because it is one of them that a lot of people have moved to, similar to Texas, to get away from the overtaxation and the overregulation in other states.
Right.
So, but each and every state, each and every person has to continue fighting. We are supposed to be the head, not the tail. We have become the tail because of our complacency, because we're not willing to do what's right. We're not willing to look and see and follow, if you don't mind me saying so, biblical law on how we're to conduct business, how we're to conduct with each other, what you're to do with a criminal if someone's actually found guilty of a crime, and everything. So we permitted a big bureaucracy to be built that is actually strangling us all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your quest for justice and fair compensation and the right to be able to do what you do, your God-given right to be able to do what you do for a living, I think is a very important one. And I'm glad you called in. And what I'll do is I'll put some of the contact info on my show page, and that way, if people want to be able to get a hold of you and help you out, they'll be able to do that. So, hats off to you, Joe, and stay strong, and just continue to do what you do, and hopefully we can right the ship here with you.
Well, like I said, right now we're just a little point of an arrow, and I'm asking each and every one of your listeners to help be the shaft and the bow to shove that arrow on through, and to wake the rest of our people up and get this nation back on a course of independence as compared to tyranny. Because the tyranny is right around the corner, as we can see.
It is.
And the main thing is not to fear. We're always supposed to fear one. And that's our Heavenly Father. That's the only one we're supposed to fear, no other. And they try to set fear into our hearts. And if they cannot do that, then they know they're losing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Joe, thanks again for calling in. And somewhere down the line, I'll try to catch back up with you and see how you're doing. And I'll make sure that your information gets out there to people, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. And I just, if you would, pass the video around, because that was from a heart that was from our Heavenly Father, I believe, asking our people to wake up.
Yep, I'm going to play that little piece of video right now. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
So there we go. That was Joe Dixon calling in live. He's the farmer of Morningland Dairy. I hope you guys were able to pick that up. Sorry it didn't. We didn't have it through the Blog Talk client, but hey, we got him. It's the best that we can do right now. So let me do this. Let me play you the video. This is the audio verite version of the video. This is we have plenty of time here. This is when the milk board comes to take the cheese. And you'll hear Joe again, and he's going to give a little bit of a sermon to these guys. And it's actually, like I said, it's pretty compelling. And you'll hear some other things. There's a fellow by the name of, I think it's Chris Evans, or Dave Evans. Sounds like a radio guy, and kind of doing his best to manage the chaos in that moment, find out who's who and what's what, who the players are, and speaking to them as to why this is happening. So here we go. This is on the morning of the 25th of January at Morningland Dairy.
See those documents? Marriage, public record.
You might call him when you want me to get the cheese out through the door on the side. Okay. So that's the way that you always put it out so it's easy access. Right. Yeah. Okay. The only thing I ask the waiter that comes out. Weigh it. Okay. And since there's a set of scales sitting there, I'd like that waiter that comes out. Like there's easy access. So you still shop for it? Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, Brooks.
Yes, that's what you become. Right. Okay.
The amount of cheese that you're planning to take today?
It's approximately 32,000.
Is it approximate, or is it?
Well,
my
we don't know.
that there was a stipulated amount. And you are with the milk board? Your name, sir?
Jerry James, state milk board.
Jerry? Michael Evans, how are you?
I'm fine.
So, the real premise behind this, and I know that your office has received some calls from our congressmen and our senators over the course of the last 24, 48 hours. Is there a reason why the milk board will not allow them to test the actual cheese?
I don't have anything to do with that.
What are you doing?
Falls. I'm just here to help these guys. I'm a farm inspector.
Okay.
I don't do anything for the plant.
So you're unwilling to make a statement for the press, for the record?
I'll let Don make a statement.
Well, he's already said he won't make any statement.
I'm saying.
You're the same. So no one has any comment?
I have a comment.
Okay. So how much cheese are you planning to take out of here today?
I'm not even aware of that. Yeah, I'm just here to help. Help flow.
So who is?
Who actually is with the milk board?
Don Falls.
Are there only three of you? You two gentlemen and
Don and Roger. Ron and Roger.
Okay, who is Roger? Is he here?
Yeah, Roger's here.
If you're helping unload the cheese, at what point do you stop? You know, who says, hey, that's enough?
Who's this gentleman in the car? Is he with you folks?
Yeah. Okay, that's Larry.
That's it?
Larry.
I thought you said there was just Don and Roger.
No, there's not Roger. Fine. That's Larry.
Oh, Larry.
Okay.
Okay.
He actually has the paperwork.
He doesn't work for the
Don.
milk board.
I read it. They have an order.
You gentlemen, do you work for the milk board?
Yep.
And you said you are a farmer?
Farm inspectors.
You say you farm?
Yeah, this farm inspector.
Or you just farm inspector?
So you're not farmers, you're farm inspectors.
Oh, no.
Farm inspectors.
Do you consider labor to be of value?
Guys, I'm not going to add any more to that. I will say one thing, that your silence, the very fact that you are here is your statement. That is your statement.
You guys are entitled to to your...
You admit you're entitled.
That's right.
But not the entitlement that you probably approve of.
Who's this guy? Are you with the milk board, sir?
Yes, sir. I work for the milk board.
Your name, sir?
Larry Bass.
Michael Evans.
Well, thank you. You the owner?
No, sir.
I'm the owner.
is right here.
Well, the state is the owner since it's been through court. I used to be the owner of the cheese.
As of this morning, you're the owner.
Well, I'm not. Well, the state took possession of it. That's why there's an embargo letter on the door.
I'm not the state, though.
You're representing the state.
I work for the state.
You represent the state. And you represent the state the same way Stalin, Hitler, Lenin, Mussolini, all of them do and did. I would like to say something here. We are praying for these men. We're praying for all of us for the repentance of our nation, to turn back to the one who created this world and this country and gave us one of the greatest countries on the face of the earth that we're now losing to what's happening, to what's going on. If there's any actual sicknesses or illnesses, I'd have no problem destroying the cheese myself. But there has been none. They haven't been able to prove any. This cheese was sold and given away to people with immune deficiencies, people who couldn't afford to buy it. We gave it to them. People who were going bankrupt, we gave it to them to try to help keep them alive as this country's being torn apart, rendered asunder. And there's a Bible verse that I would like to quote if you people wouldn't mind. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will heal their land. We're seeing the fulfillment of our wicked ways as a people. And that includes each and every one of us. These men are here to just do a job. They're hired and paid. They don't think beyond that necessarily. I have pity for them. I feel sorry for them. Because all of us will meet a just and accurate God at one point.
All right.
It just depends upon when. And this is to be a peaceful gathering. This is to be peaceful. Let them do their jobs. But I ask for the repentance of our nation to turn back to the Creator. For we are losing it. We're losing it for our children, our grandchildren, and the future. And that's what this fight has been about.
Right.
It's about the tyranny of what's coming upon us. And it's each little piece of it. It's not these men are just doing a job. But that is what they said under Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Lenin, all of them. As countries were rendered asunder. Thank you.
Amen. Good job. Not just at all.
Sir, you may be uncomfortable.
I'm not.
But the truth is that what you're doing is wrong.
I'm just doing what?
Doing my job. I said that in Nuremberg, with all due respect.
What is the job worth, brother, really, when it comes to our nation?
There are better jobs.
If you participate in the destruction, then you're as guilty as everyone
Absolutely. I had to leave a few jobs myself because of conflicts, spiritual conflicts.
And what's right and wrong?
These people haven't done anything wrong.
Well, the milk board, if the milk board was intending to be fair, what they would essentially allow them to do is test what's damaged or test what's tainted and destroy that and retain the remainder. And unfortunately, the milk board has seen fit to utilize the heavy hand of abuse that they have under administrative rules, which are not law, but are treated as such. And that's a crime. With all due respect, sir, that's a crime. And you're a perpetrator in that crime by participating and working here with these people today. That's the truth.
You have your right to...
That's not an opinion, that's a fact, sir. You're not
much longer, apparently.
You are entitled to your own opinions, but not your own facts. That is a fact, what he just said.
You said we have a right. Well, these people had a right to make a living too, an honest living. Now they don't have that right anymore. It's been taken away from them.
Well,
there's been no due
Hey, you haven't had your ox gored yet, have you? These people just got their ox gored. You're liable to suffer what these people have someday.
That may be.
Maybe sooner than you think. We all may be doing the same thing that these people have gone through. It won't be fun. You may have the opportunity someday to suffer what these people have suffered. Because when these people don't have any calls about doing to you what you're doing to them.
The simple fact is that this gathering of people here today ought to tell you what the real issue is going on here in our nation. These people are concerned enough and upset enough about what we see as the destruction of our nation that they are willing to come out here this morning. Some of us have been here 6 o'clock to make sure that we record and establish what's really happening here. That we have an agency that is absolutely run amok and is completely out of control. And you are more than willing to destroy a family farm and a family business so that someone can punch a bureaucratic ticket. It's inexcusable that you would destroy all of this cheese when it's never even been tested. That is inexcusable. If you find one bad apple in the bushel, you don't throw out the entire bushel. You throw out the bad apple. And the fact that the milk board has refused to allow this cheese to be tested to determine what's tainted and what's not is inexcusable.
Well, didn't the feds do 100 tests? It came back clean.
They swabbed the facility and came up and did 100 tests under the FDA guidelines and found 100 out of the 99 swabs that were done, 100% came back negative for results.
You can set the swab down the drain.
Say, Joe, I'd ask for your assistance. We're going to have to get those vehicles moved away from them so we can get the trailers.
You have to ask all of them, or else you have to take the dumpster all the way out, take it all the way up to the road. That's up to those people.
Folks, anyone parked along that drive, you need to move your vehicles because we got to get the trailer in, okay? All right.
Sir, where would you like us to move them?
Move them anywhere else but here.
Okay.
Let's go. Get your phone.
So you guys are okay doing work that is unjustified. The milk board wouldn't allow them to test the cheese. You're aware of that, right?
The cheese was tested, okay?
It was a bad test, and they wanted to retest, and your department wouldn't let them test it.
Okay.
That's a fact. You realize the Nazis were just doing the job, right? They were killing people. They were just doing their job. How many farms have you personally destroyed? He is.
Okay.
Yeah. You enjoy destroying people's lives?
Sir, I'm going to ask you to quit.
No,
harassing me.
I'm not harassing.
Yes, you are. Right?
No, I'm on a friend's property, and you're not a friend. And I have the right to videotape.
Well, the sheriff is going to come, okay?
Good. Actually, I called the sheriff. But you're on private property, and we're allowed to videotape pretty much anything we want to videotape. They can back down there. There's room if you want to back down there.
So that was 12 minutes at Morningland Farms on the morning of the 25th of January, 2013. And about 4 minutes into that, you hear Joe again basically saying, hey, look, this is where we're at in terms of the land. This is where we're at spiritually. You don't have to be a Christian in order to understand that. Joe comes from a Christian perspective, obviously, but I think we can all unite around food and freedom. So anyway, there you go. This is where we're at. This is where we're headed, and there will be more Morningland Dairies in our future. And if you would like to help Joe out, you can go to morninglanddairy.com, and on the video that is linked to you on the show page, there is a phone number that you can reach him at. And since he was very upfront with that phone number, I'm going to give you the phone number as well right here. It's 417-855-0588, 417-855-0588 if you want to talk to him, or if you want to send them any kind of donation or anything that they need in order to try to get their business back. It would be quite helpful, I'm sure. And it would be great. It would be great if Joe Dixon and his family could start making cheese again. Just one victory, as Todd Rundgren sang about a few years ago, more than a few years ago. Okay, that's it. That's all she wrote. I think we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish today, which is bringing some awareness to this event and how it will ultimately impact all of us. Monday, I will be back with the Monday mashup, and we won't have Joe on because we just had him on in a very impromptu moment. And then next Wednesday on Navigating the Astrological Matrix, I'm going to have a psychic on with me for the first hour. Her name is Sharon Olds, and I believe she's somewhere in the South, either Tennessee or Georgia. And she's a channel psychic, works with guides, and she's quite good. And I've covered a lot of stuff on Navigating the Astrological Matrix, different systems. This will be I think the first time on that show that I'll have like a real quote unquote psychic on. So she'll be on. She'll talk about her work, and then we'll maybe she'll do a few little readings while she's on the air, and then the second hour, more astrology. We're in Mercury retrograde now, and Saturn retrograde as well in Pisces. And Mercury retrogrades are tricky. Don't sign any contracts. Don't do any deals during a Mercury retrograde. That's the best advice I can give you. And today, in some ways, was a Mercury retrograde kind of show. We looked back in time. We looked at what happened on the 25th of January. And because Pisces is a religious and quote-unquote spiritual sign, we even looked back at the religious or spiritual touch points, or at least we began to broach the subject, the religious and spiritual touch points around freedom in this country as it relates to the Piscean, or the Age of Pisces Christian tradition, courtesy of Mr. Joe Dixon. Don't sign any contracts. And take time out to re-examine your spiritual focus and spiritual emphasis in your life. You shall be rewarded. No good deed goes unpunished. All right. That's it. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to see open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you for joining me today on the Friday Farcast, and thank you again to Joe Dixon for calling in. Spur of the moment like that. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.